German Bitcoin sales and Mt. Gox activity continue to move the markets, and El Salvador's president has a message to Americans for Independence Day. These stories and more on this week's Bitcoin News Update. Hi, I'm Nate Martin with this week's Bitcoin News Update. Bitcoin has historically performed well in July with gains of more than 16% in 5 of the past 11 years. But this first week of July sees Bitcoin down nearly 8%. Some of the news surrounding much of the early July downturn has been centered around German government sales of Bitcoin and the movement of Bitcoin from Mt. Gox. Heading into the weekend, the German government continued selling from its stash of well over 40,000 Bitcoins, selling an additional $175 million worth. Interestingly, Arkham Intelligence posted on X that the same wallet received inflows of 1,915 BTC from Kraken, Bitstamp, and Coinbase. One German politician has gained some attention by expressing her disagreement with the government's selling of the digital asset. German parliament member Joanna Kotar stated her position that selling Bitcoin is not sensible, and she urges to hold Bitcoin as a strategic reserve currency. The obvious question came up in the comments to the post from Bitcoin Magazine about the government sale. Why sell the Bitcoin on exchanges, where the selling pressure would surely take price action downward during the process of selling, especially when there was an open offer posted on X by Tron founder Justin Sun to negotiate the purchase of all the Bitcoin the Germans wanted to sell to minimize the impact on the market. Some dismissed the offer as a flex by Sun, but seeking the availability of a buyer for a large chunk of that Bitcoin over the counter would seem to have garnered a better price than what an already Bitcoin flush market was willing to pay. On Thursday, Thomas Farrer at HeyApollo.com posted on X a broadcasted transaction where a known Mt. Gox wallet moved more than 47,000 Bitcoin, which is about a third of the total to be paid to its creditors. Now, it's been 10 years since Mt. Gox declared bankruptcy, and the decade-long struggle for its creditors is nearing its end as the repayment process has begun. The news of the Mt. Gox activity sent the price of Bitcoin down to under $54,000 for the first time since late February, but only briefly, as by the weekend Bitcoin was back to trading at nearer to $59,000. The total amount of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to be distributed is now worth between $8 and $9 billion, and the significant increase in the price of Bitcoin over those 10 years is sure to lead many of those investors to cash out their coins on exchanges. One detail of note, the 47,000 Bitcoin transaction worth nearly $2.7 billion, well, it cost only $3.57 to transfer, and it took less than an hour to complete. Yeah, try doing that using a fiat system. Thursday marked the 248th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence from the British Crown by representatives of 13 of its North American colonies. Now we know them as the United States. Declaring those territories as sovereign states, it laid out 27 specific grievances which impelled them to separate themselves from its rule. Indeed, in the letter itself, it recognized the gravity of taking the decision. Prudence, indeed, it said, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. 56 men signed that document, immediately making them traitors to the crown, felons committing a capital offense. But they were so committed to preserving the self-evident truths that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that they closed this letter for all the world to read, that while firmly relying on God's protection in this noble pursuit, they would pledge to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. I was struck by a post from El Salvador President Nayib Bukele on July 4th. Congratulations to the people of the United States of America on your Independence Day. We are inspired by you. not by the ideals you hold now, but by the ideals you had in 1776 when you gained your freedom and built the foundations of your great country. We will follow that example. Happy 4th of July. Would that we be so inspired by our own leaders. Would that we be so inspired to become such leaders. That's it for this week's Bitcoin News Update. I'll see you next week.